So something that I've been incorporating into um, calls like this, whether it's podcasts or the SoulCast or any type of meeting, is bringing in that centering piece where we just stop and we close our eyes and we connect in and allow ourselves just to settle. And what I find very fascinating is there'll be something that pops up that says, okay, I'm ready, and I'll just open my eyes. And then there's something, sometimes the mind is like, well, maybe we should let everyone else know. But then there's something like, no, let them come to it in their own time. And what I always notice is that everyone opens their eyes fairly, like almost at the same time, which I find very fascinating. It's just this, we're all connected. Like we're not, I think sometimes we can, it's much easier to understand the feeling of energy and being connected by energy when we're together in person. But it happens just even being online together. That energetic connection and feeling each other's energies. And I find that to be very interesting and fascinating.
I love that, Jen, because what's coming for me now is it's taking the mind out of it, which, like, if you had said, okay, well, I'm ready, then that drops in for me, like the mind that I should also then be ready. Right. So by doing it that way and allowing people to open their eyes and giving space for that, for me, I find that helpful and interesting because it takes my mind out of it for me. Yeah.
And that brings me back to yoga, because at least in my experience, the yoga is itself, but yoga is a physical practice. How in this idea of like mind body connection, being present in the body, I'm curious, with your exploration with yoga teacher training, with your personal exploration of yoga, what that has been like for you.
It's a journey. And I love the word exploration because that's what it feels like, for sure. I feel like it's a little bit of both. I feel like I have times for sure where I'm in my head with it because there's preparation, there's planning, there's organization, there's homework, there's, expectation. And so I feel like there's a place for the mind, like legitimately also that, and how that sits with life and how to balance, all of that with life. And so I see a beautiful space for that, because while I feel like, the going within is crucial and has also its place, but for me, there is a place for the mind sometimes because it does take some concrete planning and some, which I've been sort of dealing with lately. I think that's something that's been really sort of coming up for me lately around where can I find the balance between the two? Because otherwise I find that I negate the mind to a degree that is like really resistant. And so I'm trying to find balance between both, that there can be a place where, I have to organize my family or my time in general in terms of, okay, these days I work and this makes time for, space to do homework or to plan a practice or to do some homework. And then there's the integration piece, and where I find if I can give myself that time and space to center first, and then I feel that mind-body connection, whether it's through the movement piece, whether it's through the breath work piece, whether it's through a meditation piece, like sort of putting those pieces together. And then I feel much more connected and I can really center more into, okay, well, how is this posture feeling in my body right now? It may not feel the same next week, but how is it feeling in my body today with whatever else is going on? And what adjustments can I make to help that along, so yeah, for me lately, I'm finding that balance between, the mind has its place, and dropping in and really integrating the practice, and even just bringing in other pieces, like some of the philosophy pieces, that truthfulness, that and an integrity piece that has been really coming out for me lately, and I'm trying to incorporate. So I love the richness of this program, because I feel like with the 4 teachers, and bringing in all of these elements, for me, it really has deepened the practice, because I too was, mostly thinking of yoga as a physical practice. And so with all of the elements, I feel like that deepens that mind-body connection, and facilitates that. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting because I had the same thought too when I started in yoga teacher training. It was like, okay, I have all these pieces in my life: meditation, breath work, soul coaching, and then, okay, let's bring in this physical practice, this physical movement. And then it's been such a beautiful exploration through yoga teacher training of like, oh, yoga actually is all of that part already. Right? Like it's actually that is yoga. Like all the elements within, because how yoga is often portrayed is that it is just the physical positions and the physical practice, a form of exercise. But the full breadth of yoga is actually, there's 8 limbs of yoga, and the 8 limbs incorporate much more than just the physical practice, which is actually just one of the limbs. So I find that really interesting, and was fascinating to learn.
Yeah, and the connection in this, the teachings this way of the connection around giving space to everybody's individual body shapes, and even just how we're showing up on any given day. I love that. I just feel like I too was, I feel like it can be easy to get caught up. I know for myself in just years past around, comparing myself, or needing or feeling like I should be able to do fancy poses or hold positions. And I love that, like, that's been an integration. That's been a connection. That's been a learning and a deepening around going really within to figure out, where some of those things or rules or things came from for me, and dissolving some of that with the support and the teachings, and the connection around how our body is perhaps, in terms of the anatomy, meant to move and perhaps meant not to move so well. And maybe that makes some sense now when trying to do something that isn't working so well, but that we are all different. And I love that piece and that permission to ask, how is this feeling for me right now? And I think that translates to the soul coaching. It translates to the breath work. It brings it all together, right? And even the philosophy with the 8 limbs, like you mentioned, I think that brings all of that piece together. How is this feeling for me right now? And what's coming up around that to deepen understanding, or wisdom pieces dropping in, or whatever that might look like at any given time. But to slow down, to really be present, and to ask, I think has been a beautiful addition for me. Yeah.
Sounds like,
Yeah,
go ahead, Zina.
yeah, it's really beautiful that you bring, like, the piece of yoga to actually present moments and to life, and just living it. It's not just about, I love how you said it's not just the physical part that, like, to do that fancy poses, and it's much more and much deeper. And I think that's why we also called our training Beyond, right? Like yoga teacher training and beyond, because it's really beyond all of that concept that maybe be. It's more beyond. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a good point too, that like what was I just had something come up when you said about it's more than about the poses, but almost what I feel like I've learned is that the poses are the portal into everything else. Like it's
Mhm.
the physical movement. It's not so much that is, it's almost like that's just the way to the meditation. It's the way to the mind body
Correct.
connection. It's the way to being present. It's the way to dissolving, like you mentioned, that idea of like dissolving these things. It's through the movement that all of those things happen. And so often we look at it, it can be yoga, I find, can be looked at from this place of, oh, I just need to make my pose look like that. Oh, I need to, be able to achieve, like a lot of people, when I say that I'm in yoga teacher training, it's like, oh, what's the hardest or most fancy pose that you, and I'm like, yeah, that's that's not here at all. But really, and while there's nothing wrong with wanting to, practice inversions or master different poses, for me, it's really been about, okay, it's through actually just practicing and moving my body that all of these other unfoldings happen. And so I'm curious with you, Monica, what you've mentioned a little bit here, but like what has been unfolding for you within yoga teacher training? Like what is this, as we explore and we move through something like yoga teacher training, it's an unfolding into coming more at home into ourselves and coming more into connection to what is here and who is Monica. So I'm curious what that unfolding has been like for you.
When I signed up for it, I didn't have a goal necessarily, or a concrete knowing of what that might look like, what I wanted to do with it, if anything. At the time, I just felt this I wanted to more connection between my body, like to understand it a little bit better, to become perhaps even a little bit more friendly with my body, and really just build a healthier perhaps relationship with my body. So that was sort of the impetus to start. And then as it has unfolded, as we're in month 7, I guess now, just completed month 7, which has been amazing. But yeah, it has really deepened an understanding of what I would want to do with it moving forward, and a deeper understanding of what resonates and doesn't resonate with me, which has been really lovely. That it and it can be different for anybody, and that's okay too. But when you say, like, for deepening an understanding of me as a person and in my humanity at this point in my life, I'm realizing I like perhaps, a little bit of the restorative and a little bit of a slower movement, as opposed to a really, really fast flow movement class in general. And I work with kids, so I'm looking to, perhaps there's like places for this therapeutically, and how can that look, with my work that I already do with kids. And as I get to practice, I can see some of that, although I have a lot to learn with the kids piece, but that's another, journey. But yes, this unfolding of what resonates for me, and how might this look, in my life, and how can I use the benefits of this beautiful training, and what is dropping in for me along the way, and how can I then use that to, share those gifts in a way that is meaningful to me, that is feeling authentic, that is feeling that it's coming from that place of not just doing, but feeling the doing, you know, not just going through the motions of teaching something, but teaching it from a place that, yeah, that feels authentic, that feels, you know, that I'm sharing the benefits of those gifts. So that's the goal now for me, or the intention for me, is to share all of this in ways that are, you know, yeah, meaningful and authentic. I think is where that feels solid and grounded for me, and coming from that place. So I've loved the evolution of not really knowing for quite some time where and how and what, if anything. And perhaps it was just going to be information for myself and you know, beautiful practice and meeting beautiful beings, and that would be enriching in and of itself. Like there would be, you know, no regrets. There would be, this is still, you know, has enriched my life beautifully. But as we've flown through now here, there's all of that, and I'm seeing a path of sharing, and I'm seeing a path of feeling it deepening into my soul, and being able to share that from a really beautiful intention place. Yeah.
So beautifully said, Monica. And it's look like a deep exploration on this training of yourself, of your body, of your really, you mentioned a few times already, being honest and authenticity with yourself, like, you know, who I'm truly are and what I'm actually want to teach from that place, others and kids, as you mentioned right now. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. I just
Kindergarten
wondering,
yoga is very interesting. I'll just say that.
yeah.
And adorable. And adorable. They did some little shavasana, I have to say. And there was a few of them. Oh my gosh, they were just lying there. And one little girl had her little hand sort of cupped like this on top of her chest. And she was just, oh my gosh, it was so precious. And I will say this, because I do counseling and I work at a school, and so I work with children that have challenges typically. And I will say that I have noticed those kids are the ones in particular who have gravitated to the yoga, who have gravitated to the centering, who've gravitated to a little bit of meditation, even if it looks like they're not really doing it, even if and when it looks like they're not really centered. They're the ones that I'm getting emails from family saying, my kid loves the yoga. Or the kid will say to me, Mrs. Hoppy, when are we doing yoga again? And there's a moment in my brain that I'm thinking, I didn't think you were really doing anything today. but so it was really, and that's where this journey has also evolved around, you know, I mean, I truly, deeply, authentically feel there's therapeutic benefits to all of these practices, and some breath work and all of it for the kids. But it has been a beautiful unfolding for me to see the benefits, even in just a short time of, you know, working with them and doing a few classes. And some of the classes are, you know, work out okay, and some are very messy, but nevertheless, the beauty of the authenticity of the children who almost come that way anyways, right? Or at least much more easily than we tend to, has been therapeutic for me also, you know, so it's been a give and take, and I love that piece.
No, that's great. And I love that you're still in the training and you already started to practice, right? And already bringing this piece to your students and kids. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And what strikes me in what you said there too is, you know, sometimes we get I think we do this with ourselves too, this idea of what yoga has to look like, what poses have to look like, and what getting benefit out of this has to look like. And even if it seems like they're not participating in an expected way, they're still getting benefit from it, which is really beautiful. There's something so powerful about that. And maybe
and
even just
for us too.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say the presence that's being held probably by you that is probably facilitating that for them, because they can just be present with who they are, right? They're just being who they are in the moment, which is really cool.
Yeah, and I love it that you said, like, sometimes we have an image how it should be. So one,
Yes.
two, three. And if this is not the way happening, it's like, okay, I did something not, the right way, but it's
Yes.
all the mind thing. But actually, it can be in so many ways and be in so many, yeah, so different, right? And it's still very beneficial.
Yeah, and I guess that's for us too. I was just thinking when you guys were saying, perhaps we enter a practice because, oh, I should really get a practice in today, and I didn't do one now for a little while, and you don't feel
Mhm.
like it, and that's okay too. And it's the same with anybody we might be teaching, I suppose, right? People show up, or a group of people, or the energy. We never know what's going on for people, and sometimes um you push through and something magical happens along the way, and sometimes that particular practice just didn't do it for you that day, and that's okay too, right? That there's space for both. That, well, that didn't work out so well today for my own personal practice, or I just wasn't into it today. And I think leaving room for all of that messiness, which I love how Zhenya always talks about the messiness, and be messy and get messy, and that's okay. And I feel like that permission from our beautiful teachers and has helped me tremendously,
Yeah.
being, wanting to do well, and being, typically, more that people pleasing, and our teachers who, you want to impress. Have loved the beyond part, when I do think this is a beyond part of this particular program, is the authenticity in which the teachers tend to show up, of sharing their messiness, their histories of messiness, or having been messy, and then the teaching that came out of that for them, and the humility and the humanity, I feel like has given me more permission to be okay with getting messy, and the learning. And I also feel, that this amazing 9 months of journeying is sort of the beginning. It's like the stepping stone of amazing learning. And that, all of our teachers have said that also, that, just when you finish the program isn't, okay, now I know it and now I can just do it all. That this is the journey of finding out what you like, what you don't like, what your strengths are, what you want your strengths to be, whatever that might look like, and how you want to show up. Um, and the deepening is to show up as you, and that might look different for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I've really appreciated that, and that has been, quite frankly, a therapeutic benefit to me, having experienced the humility and the humanity of our teachers as we've journeyed through. And I love that. I can always just feel my nervous system sort of relax a little bit when there's a story of of learning on their part. And so that I do feel like has been a beautiful addition to this particular program, with the 4 individuals that we've been blessed with to have. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. Beautiful said.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's for me also. Like, when I was taking my yoga teacher training, we talked about the poses, and it was interesting experience. Like I always, like, thinking it was like, be perfect. And if I'm doing
Mhm.
the pose, to be perfect, and it's in my life as well, like, be perfect. But then when I was taking yoga teacher training, it's like, it's okay not to do everything. It's
Yeah.
okay if I'm this way, and we're all have different bodies. We all have different, like, physiology. So it's okay. And this was huge, huge. And the teachers that bring in this piece, that we're all different, and we're all with some uniqueness in ourselves. And not even looking at each other and comparing, like, just how I am in my piece.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many lessons just coming with practice of yoga, coming back, coming back to yoga.
They sure are. And I love that, you don't know that at the beginning, right? I think that's the amazing piece of the journey as we just evolve, right? And feeling the benefits of the community that we've now created and established, right, has been also amazing. So yeah, I love that we don't know, but then here we have all these beautiful deepenings and personal growth and awakenings, and however that might look for people, but it's just been a natural piece of this for me, for sure. Yeah, amazing.
Mm. Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing your experience.
You're
Do you have
welcome.
anything else to add? And maybe even to say some words if you have a friend and, like, you know, you want just to suggest the program and say how it's like, you know, what is, yeah, will be beneficial for your friend probably to take this yoga chief training.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have anything to compare it to. I've not done another yoga teacher training for sure. So I don't have anything to compare it to. But I just know my experience, and I feel like the beyond, like I feel the beyond.
Mm.
And perhaps part of that is, an initial expectation, but I think having the 4 elements, the 4 teachers, allows for different perspectives, allows for different sharing of experiences. I feel like everybody is beautifully knowledgeable in their own craft, and I feel like everybody shows up beautifully authentic. And I think that shines. I feel that when we show up to class, whatever class it is. And so there's a richness, and even bringing in the guest person that we had last week or last month. So there just feels like there's just different crafts and explorations and knowledge-based information, but also it's rich with experience. Like we get a lot of experiential time. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of richness. It's filled. I do feel the beyond.
Mm.
Yeah. I feel like everybody does bring in, and even as they've developed, like even with Shenya with his MoveNet, which we'll do, it's like, so there's extras. Like, I just feel like there's lots of extras that you wouldn't necessarily think of when you're thinking of the yoga training, and Carolyn with her, relationship stuff and dyad work that we do sometimes. And so I just feel like there's lots of richness in what's happening that adds to the depth of this particular training program. And they're all pieces that, again, if it resonates with you, that you may pursue or use, and if not, that's okay. But you've been exposed to a large variety or wide variety of beautiful teachings and or offerings. Yeah, which I think has been, for me, really quite amazing and has felt very rich and fulfilling. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Monica. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Yes, it was a pleasure to explore how it was for you yoga teacher training this year.
Yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
I kept saying, one thing I will say, like, my sentence when people would say, oh, how's it going? Or I'd say, I love it so much and it's really a lot. I'd love it so much and it's really hard. I love it so much. And like, it was always and, there's not a but, it's and I'm just learning to make space for that in my life in general, because it feels like, that we're always supposed to say, oh, it's just great. Well, there's days when it's hard, and there's days when I'm feeling overwhelmed with it. And there's days when I'm like, I don't think I get the anatomy, so to give permission for that there can be room for both. Right. And again, we show up every, that weekend a month, and some days you might feel like it and some days you might not, and that might flow through the day too. And so what I love about the teachers, and again, our community that we've built, is that I feel like there's space for that, right? I feel like there's some space too. And I'm learning to show up for myself like that a little bit kinder and with more compassion, to say, as you're saying, Zina, around trying to be perfect or trying to do it all or trying to hold it all together. So that's just been my personal journey, but it has, this program has shown me, or given me opportunity, for life to present itself, these opportunities to be a little bit kinder in how I'm showing up, whatever that may be. And so that's usually my go-to statement. I do love it truly, deeply, authentically, and it's really hard sometimes. Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
It's both. It's
Yes.
and yeah.
Well, and I feel like that's honoring the learning process, right?
Yeah.
That statement is honoring the learning process, because it's impossible, I think, to really learn something new and to not have that come up in something that is so full, like yoga teacher training, because it is, we have the philosophy, we have the anatomy, we have the physical practice, learning to teach, we have, the spiritual, the meditation aspect, the pranayama. Everyone is going to have their natural strengths when they're coming into this. And so maybe for some, they feel that the meditation is very, much more easeful because they've been practicing that for a long time. But maybe that anatomy is like, woof, that's challenging. Right. And some people have been teaching for a very long time. Like when I think of Art, like he already has done physical training, and teaching comes very natural to him. But I'm sure there's things within that scope that are more new and are taking practice, right? And I think just that statement is honoring the natural process that is learning something like yoga and to become a teacher, and I think that's beautiful, because that's each, and that can be brought into here, right? Honoring ourselves as human beings. I think sometimes we only want to focus on one end of the spectrum, or one part of the experience of, like, everything is happy and joyful and exciting, and that's there. But sometimes that's not life every single day or all throughout the day. And that to me is just honoring just the natural way of things, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah.
And powerful too, because it's like we're surrendering to what is here in this moment. What what is authentic to Monica in this moment.
Exactly. And that's a
I love
journey, but
Yeah.
it's great. Even when it's not, it's great because it's part of it, right? It's part of it. And that's the beautiful growth and learning around that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.